So I really love the HBO series The Wire, regarded as one of the greatest shows of all time by critics and audiences alike. Sitting at a 9.3 out of 10 on IMDb with over 300,000 ratings, the show has garnered a cult following since its conclusion in 2008. However, one of the most unique things about the show is not just the content of the show itself, but the affinity space that surrounds it, which even includes prominent figures in politics such as the US president. One of the more interesting aspects about the history of The Wire's run is how, unlike a lot of shows today, it didn't garner a large audience until a few years after the first season had initially aired and the show had concluded. This was partially due to overshadowing within its own network from The Sopranos, which at the time, and still to this day, was championed as one of the greatest television shows of all time, winning 21 Primetime Emmy Awards and nominated for 111, in comparison to only 2 Emmy nominations throughout the entirety of The Wire's run. However, some fans of the show argue that The Wire going under the radar for as long as it did could be considered a good thing, as it gave the show the time it needed to finish its narrative, which gave it more of a televised novel feel rather than something people would tune into once a week, which in the case of a show such as The Wire can be detrimental to its success, as many small details that would be important later on could be easily forgotten. This allowed for the fan base to not only have deeper discussions about the show's subtler details, but also allow room for consideration of the show's more topical themes, including economic, racial, and policing issues within America.
Fans of The Wire can be found in a variety of places. There are several video essays found here on YouTube that discuss the show at length and what it does differently from other shows. A few of my favorites include the video essays done by YouTuber Thomas Flight that analyzes how the show handles its discussion of the various institutions in Baltimore, and the character analyses done by the YouTube channel The Take. In addition to these videos, one can find many perspectives discussing the show in the comment sections of these same videos.
An interesting example of an opinion shared by fans is how people felt about the second season of the show. Upon initial viewing of the season, much of the audience at the time was confused. Rather than focusing on the old characters that the audience had gotten to know in the first season, the show chose to focus on a brand new batch of characters in what seems like a completely different setting. However, this was the first instance of The Wire's signature of introducing a new system into the show, as a whole every season, and due to it being the second season, the audience was unfamiliar with it. While the first season focused on the policing system and the drug trade system, the second season introduced the blue-collar dock workers, the third season introduced politics, and so on. When looking at the show as a whole, this way of storytelling made more sense, and Season 2's overall consensus changed from being one of the most confusing and weaker seasons to one of the show's most melancholy and unique. Fans of The Wire are not just found in online spaces and comment sections. Several books, college courses, and political discussions have been centered around themes that The Wire covers. For example, during Obama's presidency in 2015, he invited the show's creator David Simon to the White House to discuss the drug war and policing system themes of the series. The two went over how, while some of the issues that The Wire covers have improved since the show's inception in 2002, many of its themes are still very much relevant today. Here is my personal favorite clip from the discussion.
Well, I was in Baltimore, and it's a drug-saturated city, or it certainly was in the early 1980s when I arrived. Right. This was a time where people thought they could arrest their way out of the drug problem, right? And they actually tried to do that. And what became increasingly obvious to me over the years of covering it was that when you devote yourselves to street-level drug enforcement, when you try to win the drug war, you only have a limited number of resources, limited amount of resources. And I watched the police department in Baltimore, and then I noticed it in other cities with the same sort of problems of drug use. They stopped doing police work. Right. They were arresting people for drugs, and that was presumptive police work, but actually it wasn't. And at the same time that the numbers of drug arrests and the incarcerations for drug arrests went up, and they were small incarcerations, they were 2-3 months city jail because you couldn't put them everywhere. You couldn't build prisons fast enough. Right. Meanwhile, the arrest rates for rape, robbery, murder were going down. And the one thing that makes cities safer is competent retroactive investigation of felonies.
To conclude, The Wire is a very unique type of show with a very unique type of affinity space attached to it. While many other shows do have passionate fan bases that enjoy analyzing the themes of their respective series, few to no other shows have ever had the reach and influence that The Wire has on the systems that it discusses. So if you're looking for a new show to try this upcoming summer break, I highly recommend giving the show a try to join an amazing community.